Mr. Transformers 96 here with another video, and we talk about a newly shown Hot Toys product. This time it's from Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and it's Carnage himself. So very excited about this figure. This is one of my most anticipated, or one of the figures that I've wanted them to make the most this year. So very excited that they actually are, and that it is fully up on pre-order. Sorry this is so late. I was actually on a cruise when this figure was shown, so didn't really have an ability to make a video. Nonetheless, better late than never with this one, because I definitely still want to talk about it for sure. And I've seen the movie now that I'm back. I've seen the film, so we can go into depth about the figure. Overall, just my quick feelings on the film. I didn't love it, to be honest. I thought that it was a little weak. I thought it had some choppy editing. I think it's very short. I think it lacks some story, development. Carnage, I think he looks really cool, but I didn't love his dynamic with Cletus Cassidy. I felt that it was very uncomic-like in some instances. So nonetheless, even though I'm a bit disappointed with the representation of Carnage in the film, I still love Carnage. Carnage is my favorite Marvel comic character. So I'm ecstatic to still get this figure. This is a must-have for me. So let's talk about the figure himself. Overall, he looks pretty incredible. As you can see, so vicious, so much going on. Carnage is a character that it has, tentacles and tendrils coming off of him, flying, all sorts of different weapons and hands that he uses, and with the enhanced detail of live action, with the muscular system, the veining, and then the kind of wet look to him, it really gives him quite a vicious and just really eye-catching look, to be honest. I think that he looks fantastic. And, with Venom, with his exclusive tendrils, I know that he comes with one or two, but if you get all three or whatever, you can kind of have a bit of a crazy fight sequence like this. I think this looks really cool with, both Venom and Carnage going at it with all their tendrils and with so much going on and weapons and everything. It looks awesome. As you can see, these figures just look fantastic together. I think it would be hard to get one without the other, to be quite honest. Face sculpt for Carnage, I think, looks incredible. I love the sculpt itself. I'm not a big fan that Carnage has a ton. I think the whole, kind of long tongue thing is Venom's thing. Wish that Carnage didn't have a ton like this in the movie. But nonetheless, I still think it looks cool. You do have some different options with that as well. There are two versions of this Carnage figure. One's a deluxe that comes with an accessory for Venom, which I'll get into a little later. But just the Carnage figure himself, as you can see them fighting, Carnage is larger than Venom, which I understand the thought process of, because, the threat has to be kind of larger than the hero, but I think that I'm not a fan of Carnage being larger than Venom. I think that that's of course not comics accurate in the slightest. I would have much rather Carnage was smaller, but was just more fierce. I think that it would be even scarier if he was much more powerful than Venom and wasn't even as buff as him, But unfortunately, they did just kind of go the standard route of big villain. So it's a bit disappointing. Nonetheless, though, the Hot Toys figure really captures the scale, and they released a great picture, which we'll get to in a moment, which will go over the scale between the two of them really well. But as you can see, the texture within Carnage looks fantastic. The muscular system is quite intense on its own, but then when you add all of these little black veining pieces, and then you add the blackened kind of shadow within the muscle system, there's a lot going on. It looks very cool, very highly detailed. And what's great is that something different about this Carnage than Venom is that Venom went with a rubber suit. And that was the thing that kind of held me back from ordering Venom from a long time. I'm not a fan of rubber. It completely hinders articulation. It's something that will and can deteriorate over time. It's just not something that I prefer. I much prefer physical joints. Venom has rubber arms and legs, so still can bend at the knees and elbows, but it's over a rubber casing, so I'm not a fan of that. Carnage here uses all physical invisible joints, which is awesome. So no rubber on Carnage, which means he'll last. You won't have any issues with him deteriorating over time, anything like that. And there's so much detail and so much going on both of these characters, but especially Carnage. The visible joints don't look bad. It's hard to tell that he has has physical joints until you're specifically looking at them, but they don't stand out at all. You know, if you have a character with just a very smooth, like regular skin, the joints might stand out, but with something like this, with an advanced kind of muscular system and the tendrils and everything like that, it doesn't even phase you. You don't notice it. And Venom, although maybe slightly more noticeable because he has a little less detail than Carnage, they still should have went with physical joints, in my opinion, for sure. And I think that they probably regret it, because if they didn't regret it, they'd probably do Carnage with rubber, and they didn't. So I'm very happy that they didn't here. Tendril wise, as you can see, he's got a tendril system that comes out of his back with 3 separate tendril pieces, and then he has another one with 2. So a ton of tendrils coming out of him. You can have 5. They have interchangeable kind of claw pieces at the edges, so you can kind of change them out to different things. As you can see, his hands, you can have standard hands, you can have this massive claw axe, you can have a big knife. There's multiple different combinations of weapons for both his hands and the tendrils, which I think is really cool. Also, with the mouth sculpt, I don't know if it's just the ton, but in some shots it almost looks like his jaw is off to one side, which I actually think is really cool. So again, it might just be the ton kind of tricking my mind, but I think that it kind of just looks awesome. And the 90% of the photos here use this version of the Carnage head sculpt, because he comes with 2 head sculpts. He comes with this, which is the mouth completely open, ton coming out, and he has multiple interchangeable tons for kind of different directions and things like that, which is nice. But then he also has a head sculpt that is closed mouth, which I actually like a lot. Just like the Venom one, he came with the same style of head sculpts and tons and everything, and I really like the kind of the closed mouth. I think that it looks really cool, has a vicious look to it. Here's what you get. So here's the standard. So essentially with the standard, you get those interchangeable things. So interchangeable kind of claw, interchangeable axe, 2 standard hands with extra kind of claw pieces, and then just kind of almost like a pincer claw effect here. As far as the tendrils, as you can see, a ton of different designs for the tendrils, all sorts, and not a single one looks to be the same as the other, which is awesome. You know, that level of detail is what kind of sets Hot Toys apart, but of course you pay for it. You get the physical tendrils themselves coming off of his back here. Standard base, which is the same style of base as the movie 1 Venom, which is nice. So obviously I'm 90% sure that they're not going to do a movie 2 Venom based on the exclusive accessory with this Carnage. So because of that, it's great that even though they're technically from 2 different movies, they've kept the same base design, which is awesome. And the base looks really cool. And then, like I mentioned, 3 different versions of the ton, different lengths, in kind of different directions, an open mouth head and then a closed mouth head. So overall, what you get with Carnage I think is great. The only thing extra that I could have wanted was a Woody Harrelson melding with Carnage type of face sculpt. It's, you know, that was something that was really needed with the original Venom, because he did that. He had the kind of the split face with Tom Hardy, and then Venom, it was really, you know, kind of an iconic look for him. With Carnage, it's less so, although Woody Harrelson does kind of come out while he's in Carnage. It isn't so cut. It's almost like it's got like a bit of a smoky effect. It would be a little hard to do in plastic and make it look great, while the Venom one could easily be done because it was so clear how he was kind of half of his face was Venom, half of it was Carnage. So that's basically the exclusive accessory here, is that if you buy the deluxe version of this Carnage figure, you get all the regular things, but then you get an accessory that's not meant for Carnage at all. It's a Venom bust with a new Venom head sculpt, which the head sculpt is not just for the bust or anything. It can be used on the physical Venom figure. Clearly, they have no intentions of doing a new Venom from this movie, because A, his costume doesn't change at all. He has no different design than his movie 1, which is awesome, because then, you know, you have your Venom figure works for both movies, which is great. But then also, if they were planning to do an updated Venom from this movie, this head sculpt would just be included with that. It wouldn't be something that's like a kind of a you know, retcon put in this figure so that, you know, it makes the fans happy with their Venom figure. The bust is neat for people who don't have the original Venom figure but still want the deluxe. It would be weird if he just came with a head sculpt that was completely useless to them. So I get why they did the bust. However, I can't imagine many people are going to buy Carnage without having Venom. That would be really strange, to be honest. So I would have just preferred the extra head sculpt at a lower price range rather than then an extra $65 for the bust and head, because the bust doesn't really do anything for me. Although, you know, you can use this head sculpt and put a regular Venom head sculpt on this bust. I don't think I'd ever display it because it would just be weird to have a bust with your Hot Toys. It's not something that they've really ever done before, so it's just as a little odd. So it's something that I don't know what I'm going to do, because the head sculpt is really cool. I think that the Tom Hardy sculpt, the half of it is pretty decent, and then the Venom kind of collapsing over it looks just like the movie, and it's really neat. But when I actually think about it with my Venom figure, I don't think I'd ever display that head sculpt on him, other than just to kind of see it. But you know, on display on the shelf, I don't think I'd ever use it, so I'm not 100% sure if it's worth the extra you know, money on this figure. And then the one kind of shot of Venom, or excuse me, Carnage with the closed mouth is this one, which I think is disappointing because it's such a cool head sculpt, so it's weird that they only took one photo of it. But yeah, overall though, this Carnage figure I think looks fantastic. Oh, let me get to the size comparison photo. 1 minute here. Alright, here we go. So this is a great photo because this gives you the great comparison. First of all, just bases wise, as you can see, the base is in the exact same style as Venom, which is awesome, even though they're from different movies. So you've got the same look, which is great. As far as the figures, as you can see, Carnage is quite a bit taller than Venom, a decent amount, which is awesome. Well, you know, okay, it's not awesome because I would prefer the scales to be reversed. But being that this is how it is in the movie, the Hot Toys did a nice job of representing that here. Even though he is taller, he is a bit thinner. As you can see, just proportion-wise, he's got thinner proportions than Venom. He's still muscular, but he does have a bit of a thinner proportions. And then the tendrils, without any extra ones, just the sculpted ones coming off of him, give him a really dynamic look. As you can see, just the two of them standing there, you know, this is kind of a great comparison of just plain, and there's a lot more going on with Carnage, which is just neat. And then here's both of their head sculpts that have the closed mouth. Overall, this is a much larger figure, and therefore the price reflects that, but I think that it's in a fair amount, because I think that you get a lot more with this Carnage figure than Venom, and although it's more expensive, it's not by a ton. So going over some of the details for the release, here we have it. We've got Carnage, the standard version, so no Venom bust with the extra head sculpt, is $445. Very expensive, but I think that the Venom was $415 if I'm not mistaken. So $30 extra for a larger figure with a decent amount more accessories is, I think, fair. That doesn't kind of phase me too much. So overall, I think that price, albeit very expensive, is comparable to what they've kind of set the standard for the last Venom figure. If you want the deluxe version, it's going to be $510, so an extra $65, which, you know, for an extra head sculpt, like as far as accessories go, extra accessories, head sculpts are definitely very large and great extra accessories. It's, you know, I think that, here's the thing, I think $65 for the bust and the head sculpt is probably a fair price, but I don't want to really care for the bust. I only want the head sculpt. So then $65 just for the head sculpt, that seems a bit much. So it's hard for me because I'm not sure which I'm going to end up getting. I'm kind of going both ways right now. I think that I would be perfectly happy with the standard Carnage, but I don't want to regret not having this head sculpt in the future, because I don't know if they're going to be doing many Venoms going forward. So it's a bit of a toss-up for me, to be honest. Overall, though, this looks like an incredible figure, even though the character and film were a little disappointed for me personally. The figure itself is a great representation of what he was in the film. And, you know, being that he's Carnage, even if he's a bit of a disappointing Carnage or, you know, slightly underwhelming, this is still one that is a must-have for me for sure. So I will definitely be purchasing this, and I already have Venom on pre-order, just waiting for it to ship at this point, so hopefully that'll be soon. Release date on this guy is January to March of 2023. So we're looking at about a year and a half, which is a little high. It's not horrifying, but it is a little further than I would like. Nonetheless, very excited for this figure. I think it's just going to be a real eye catcher and a real you know, kind of stand-up piece in your collection. So there you go, that's my thoughts on this new Hot Toys Carnage figure. Looking really fantastic here. Let me know what you guys think of the figure, and thanks so much for watching.